downloading the free TuneIn app. Once you do, search Rainier Avenue Radio. And remember, do not curse out your fellow drivers. This has been your Rainier Avenue Radio traffic update. Atlantic Street Center has been serving the children, youth, and families of the Seattle-King County area since 1910. We partner with families and communities to raise healthy, successful children and youth through services including counseling, early learning, youth development, domestic violence, and education support for school-aged children. Committed to serving the African American community, Atlantic Street Center provides services and support for all marginalized people. Learn more at AtlanticStreetCenter.org.
What up, y'all? Check out the show. Check out the big show. I'm talking about the Traffic Jam, Drive Time Radio, Dirty Harry Radio. Of course, Rainier Avenue Radio, Traffic Jam 4 to 6. If I could say it in multiple languages, I would, but I only know one. I'm not going to fake the funk. In the studio with my guy,
Kareem the Dream, the executive producer for Rainier Avenue Radio.
And all the females, all the beautiful women out there telling me he really is a dream, and I'll say, you know what? That's all I needed to hear. Too much information, but go to Harry. All right, check out the show Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 on Rainier Avenue Radio contest, in-studio interviews, play-by-plays. We give you the ingredients. We're your chefs in the kitchen. Let's go. Kareem the Dream, Dirty Harry, Rainier Avenue Radio. Come on.
What's on your heart? Are you exhausted at the lack of progress for people of color in business, politics, and life? This is Cindy Bright, the host of Heartbeat Radio. Each week, we explore this heart condition in the country that is affecting you and me. We have real conversations about what's necessary for change. It's time to change this dialogue. Will you join this Heartbeat weekly, Wednesdays at 7 p.m. on Rainier Avenue Radio?
Metro League High School sports are back.
There's Jordan. Makes a stutter step inside. Breaks the tackle. He's off and running. He's going to take it all the way.
Join Rainier Avenue Radio, your home team for Metro League football, basketball, baseball, girls soccer, track and field, bowling, and even more than that. We got you. Watch Metro League High School sports on Rainier Avenue Radio via Facebook, YouTube, or Twitch. You can listen in right at our website, RainierAvenueRadio.world, or download our app for free to listen and watch. Metro League High School Sports 2021 on RainierAvenueRadio.world, powered by the Urban League of Metropolitan Seattle, King County for Culture, and the Seattle Mariners.
Oh, yes, it's late tonight.
This is Paul Pearson, host of Star Time. And when I'm not trying out new wigs and cocktail dresses, I'm listening to RainierAvenueRadio.world.
Right. Oh, yes, it's late. Put your bands up. Say it louder. Say it louder. Yeah. Some people say we got a lot of malice. Some say it's a lot of love. I say we want to remove it until we get what we deserve.
Good evening, everybody.
Put your bands up. Say it louder. Say it louder.
Good evening, everybody. Juan Cotto calling, touching bases with you live from my daughter's communion practice, and I stepped out of the church here at St. Therese parking lot to catch up with my good friend Edwin Bailey on the Dupe and Edwin show. And tonight I'm going to see if I can carry this until Edwin gets here. And if he doesn't, you're just going to have to listen to me for 30 minutes as my good friend Rick DuPree is on vacation. I texted him this morning. He looks great out there in the sun. And as I said during the baseball game, if you were listening just one short hour ago, we were up at Garfield Park as the Garfield Bulldogs and the Eastside Catholic Crusaders were completing. It was a 5-0 win for the Eastside Catholic Crusaders. My heart goes out to the pitcher, Sheehan O'Connor, for Eastside Catholic. He threw a no-hitter. Unfortunately, there's no unofficial score. I gave a couple of plays that were made by Eastside Catholic a hit. I gave him a hit, but they went ahead and called Garfield. They said Garfield didn't get any hits. So a no-hitter for Shaheen O'Connor, and what a great job that he did today. And I want to tip my hat to him and his family if they're listening. What a tremendous job, a tremendous effort for that young pitcher here in the Metro League. So without Rick DuPree or Edwin Bailey, I'm just going to get to it if that's okay. We're just going to go ahead and talk about some of the sports that went on this weekend, and obviously what a big weekend of sports it was. I think there was a little bit of a golf tournament played yesterday. I would love to talk with Edwin Bailey about that if he does sign in tonight. I think everyone on the planet has heard that Phil Mickelson, the legendary golfer, and he's one of the great golfers of all time. Unfortunately, his career has intersected with that of one Eldrick Taunt Woods, better known as Tiger Woods. And Tiger Woods and Jack Nicklaus, Ben Hogan, their careers have been so bright and their careers have been so stellar. We forget that great players like Arnold Palmer and Tom Watson and Gary Player had unbelievable careers. Phil Mickelson yesterday at the age of 50. This is what makes this unique. He is the oldest major winner in the history of golf. Now, let's set this in perspective. Julius Burroughs held the record, and he won the 1968 Masters. Burroughs was 48 years old. And yesterday, with the field so deep and the competitors so strong, yesterday he tees off one stroke ahead of arguably the best player in the game. I mean, on the Golf Channel, Justin Leonard and Brandel Chambly, they were all ready to crown Brooks Koepka as the greatest player of his generation if he could win this tournament. Yet, Phil Mickelson turns back the clock, an unbelievable performance. And for those of us that love golf like I do, Phil Mickelson's control of his golf ball, control of the flighting of his golf ball. People, let's talk about the flighting of the golf ball. These guys are such good players. And in the windy conditions at the ocean course at Kiawah Island, Phil Mickelson is able to fly his ball at different levels of trajectory to keep it under the winds. And that helps him with that left-handed swing of his conquer this course. And he played a spectacular round yesterday. The other thing that he controlled was his nerves. And Phil Mickelson, at the age of 50, talked about different things that he has done to help control his nerves. He plays, for example, 48 holes of golf in his competitive practice rounds to make 18 holes not seem as much. He talked about the fact that he was trying to strengthen his mental muscle. Phil Mickelson has been working on his body. He went on a rather extravagant routine to help him lose some weight. But from Tuesday night to Thursday morning, every week he fasts for 36 hours to sort of reset his system. Phil Mickelson, in terms of his practice routines and different things that he's done to strengthen certain areas to keep himself healthy. And it just makes me realize when you're looking at some of these athletes like a Phil Mickelson, like a Tom Brady, the incredible amount of work that they have been doing to keep themselves not only in rigorous physical condition to keep up with the rigors of participating in their sport, but the rigorous mental conditioning that these gentlemen have been going through to keep up with the rigors of their sport and hold off these young guys. It was also one of the great scenes in all of golf, and you're seeing some of those highlights of the crowd when Phil Mickelson and Brooks Koepka came up to 18th green yesterday. And even Koepka said that people were running into him and bumping into his injured knee. And he just said that, it was a little uncool the way that people were bumping into him. But the unbelievable imagination and the unbelievable just support for Phil Mickelson. And there he is in the highlights as he walked up to the 18th green, was able to make par, and became the PGA champion for 2021, one of golf's four majors, and arguably one of the most memorable golf moments and one of the most prestigious and one of the premier moments in the history of golf. I think it's safe to say that with all of the success that Tiger Woods has had, it is overshadowed by a long shot, and rightfully so, the success that Phil Mickelson's had. I mean, when you put it in perspective, Tiger Woods has won 15 majors and 81 golf tournaments, tying him with Sam Snead for most of all time. And that has just kind of sucked the life out of the certain perceptions of Phil Mickelson's career. However, a man who has won 6 majors, a man that has won 48 golf tournaments, if Tiger Woods had not played in this era, our perceptions of Phil Mickelson would be just so different. I mean, he's had a spectacular career, and certainly he's been tabbed the quote-unquote people's champion. I think that Phil Mickelson is arguably one of the most popular golfers in the history of the sport, and certainly his flair for the dramatic, his swashbuckling play, his calculations, his personality, and what he displays to the media and what he displays to the public. But the other thing I will also say is that for the last 15 years, he has certainly remained a golfer. Phil Mickelson certainly has continued to improve on his craft, look for ways to improve despite what many would say are some of his skills declining. And like he said, with some of his mental skills declining, trying to keep those muscles stronger, Phil Mickelson has remained a golfer. He certainly does play a packed schedule of PGA Tour events. Tiger Woods, for example, I don't think Tiger's been a golfer for the last 15 years. I think Tiger Woods, certainly after his run in 2006, when he won the British Open and PGA Championship, his 2007 win in the PGA Championship, and then his epic win in 2008 before his fall from grace, Tiger Woods has been just an icon and a legend since those days. And obviously the injuries have certainly eroded, but Tiger Woods has rarely played more than 5 to 7 tournaments in a year. And he certainly, he plays his own events and his own tournaments, and he's played the majors. And but he has not really been what I would say as a golfer, where Phil still continues to push himself. And I believe that Phil, if this is not his last major, he is certainly going to be competitive in other majors because he's looking for ways to do so. So my hat's off to Phil Mickelson for an epic performance yesterday, and really just one of the more inspiring and enlightening performances, and certainly would be one of the most memorable performances in golf history. And I would love to talk to Edwin Bailey just in terms of his thoughts about how athletes prepare themselves as they get into the later stages of his career. Maybe something we'll talk to Edwin Bailey about next week. You're listening to Juan Cotto on the Dupe and Edwin Bailey show, and we are talking a little bit of sports here on a beautiful Monday evening as we lead into Lidline Sports on your community radio station, Rainier Avenue Radio.world. I'm going to go on to my next subject, and it's a subject close to me. It's my favorite team in our city. I'm a huge baseball fan, and we have witnessed over the last couple of weeks one of the most difficult efforts in recent memory with our hometown 9 baseball squad, especially on the offensive side of the ball. They struggled on a recent road trip. They called up Jared Kelnick. Kelnick we were hoping would bring in a spark to the lineup. He's a highly touted young player for the Mariners, who we obtained in the Robinson Cano trade. And Kelnick, he played his first AAA games, had a red-hot start in Tacoma. Kelnick, of course, was the player that many would hope was going to be brought up last year, especially when the Mariners had a tinge of a playoff run in the 60-game schedule. And the Mariners front office decided that they did not want to start his free agent clock then, so they didn't call him up. And that kind of irritated some of the people around the organization, and many that wanted to see Kelnick be brought up from the minor leagues. So the Mariners finally brought him up 2 weeks ago. And Kelnick, to his credit, he had a really good series at home, and I believe he hit his first home run and drove in some runs, and started a little bit of a spark. And the Mariners were able to beat Cleveland 3 out of 4 games. Since then, the Mariners I don't think they've hit the broadside of a barn on the offensive side. They really struggled. They've sunk to the lowest batting average in Major League Baseball. They were no hit again. They've been hit no hit twice this season. And then they went down to San Diego, and we've heard all this talk about how great Jared Kelenic is and what type of player he is and how exciting he's going to be. And the San Diego Padres unleashed a cyborg on us down there, a guy by the name of Fernando Tatis. And I had not been able to see Fernando Tatis play in a full game yet. I'd heard tremendous things about him, but what I saw was incredible. I saw this tall, angular shortstop who was out there who looks like an SEC wide receiver. I mean, this dude is a tall dude, and he runs like the wind. I mean, he's fast. He hit a ground ball to second base and almost beat it out, and then he's got power. He hit a grand slam and a home run on Saturday night, just totally destroying the Mariners. He had a home run Friday night. I mean, he put on just a display that I have not seen in quite some time. And I texted my friend, whoa, I thought Jared Kelenic was the guy that we were talking about. Fernando Tatis hit his 50th home run of his career Friday night. He hit 50 home runs in 171 games. I think that's one of the third or fourth fastest in Major League Baseball history. He's the son of former outfielder Fernando Tatis, who had a 14-year Major League career. And this kid looks like the real deal. He was acquired from the Chicago White Sox in a trade for James Shields, and they probably thought, geez, we're getting this gangly kid, but they're getting a five-tool guy who can do everything from the shortstop position, and then he jacks the ball out of the ballpark. The other thing about Fernando Tatis that I noticed that he plays the game with flair. There's a right way to, quote-unquote, right way to play the baseball game and not show people up. This young man backflips, which I thought was kind of cool. He rounds third base after a home run and does this really cool stutter step. He slid across the plate after he scored from second base on a single, and he slid and did this high step jump. Just one of the more exciting players in Major League Baseball. And the San Diego Padres are loaded. And we're sitting here like, wait a minute. The San Diego Padres have been rebuilding, and look what they have. We, the Seattle Mariners, are in the third year of this quote-unquote rebuilding program, and we still look a little bit anemic, certainly with stars such as Kyle Lewis, obviously the aforementioned Kelenic. Our leading hitter, hitting a robust 257, is Mitch Haniger. It just seems like this rebuilding program, and I was hoping to talk to Edwin about this. What does he think about the Mariners rebuilding program? And I've got my thoughts, and I think there's a lot left to be desired in this rebuilding program. And hopefully the Mariners are going to do something to get this offense turned around. But it seems like we go through this every so often with the Seattle Mariners. We go through these plunges in offense, and we actually have pretty decent pitching. The bullpen has been quite spectacular. One of the leading bullpen groups in Major League Baseball. The starting pitching hasn't been bad, but the offense has just been anemic. So looking at it from that perspective, there's going to be several calls to question in regards to the development of players over the years that have supposedly come up. And I think about guys that had come up from the Seattle Mariners, and I can go through the names: Dustin Ackley, Nick Franklin. There was a young shortstop that played, and Brad Miller, and there was Mike Saunders, and all these guys that came up and just did not deliver. And if half of them would have delivered to be major league players, the Mariners would have been better off. And here's this group of athletes that we've been banking on. Kyle Lewis obviously coming back from injury, Haniger coming back from injury, Kelenic, J.P. Crawford. Shed Long is injured right now. Was supposed to be the second baseman of the future. We got rid of Cano and D. Gordon, and we put Shed Long out there. Unfortunately, he's been hurt. Kyle Seager's been the mainstay, but we just have not been able to produce runs. Evan White's another one. So hopefully this won't be another class of Mariners that ends up just not doing anything. And hopefully this is just a little bit of a lull in the season, and they will be able to get this figured out. Certainly, they're a team that this group of players would be considered. They've all been considered top talents at certain times during their minor league careers. But for the Mariners to make any move in their rebuilding phase and to resemble what the San Diego Padres are doing, they're going to have to start making some action happen at the plate, and we'll see if that happens. You're listening to Juan Cotto on Rainier Avenue Radio.world. This is the Dupe and Edwin show that is at 6:30, and we are usually the lead into Lidline Sports. And I am talking just a little bit of Phil Mickelson. I'm talking about a little struggling Seattle Mariners baseball program. And I'm just sitting here talking sports when my daughter is at St. Therese Church in communion practice. So going to go finish this, and then I'm going to go jump in the pew and make sure that my daughter is getting the parental support she needs for her first communion in the next week. I had a very, very interesting story sent to me by one of my good buddies in graduate school. The Connecticut Sun of the WNBA made headlines this weekend. The GM and the head coach of the Connecticut Sun, Curt Miller, was fined $10,000. He was fined $10,000 for calling WNBA and Las Vegas, the franchise star, Liz Cambridge, as he was complaining to referees, said that she weighs 300 pounds when he was arguing a call when she was kind of mixing it up down low. So that she weighs 300 pounds. Liz Cambridge shot back to Curt Miller in a comment, "Hey, Curt, I don't weigh 300 pounds. I just got off the scale, and I weigh 235 pounds. But she said she's not going to let a man dictate her attitude and say things about her like that. And I just thought that was kind of a cheap shot by Curt Miller to say that and to go after that young lady. But there's a different standard. I guess people would feel that that's a different standard, but I just don't like to hear coaches making those types of disparaging comments against any player, male or female. I mean, if you want to keep it on the court, and I've always told the players that I coach, to say things positive for your teammates and say things positive for your team. And I felt that Curt Miller maybe just overstepped his bounds as a coach. And he's certainly getting criticized for it. And he's also certainly getting rubbed in the pocketbook for it, a little $10,000 fine, which I think is just about right. But I hope that, in terms of sitting and when you sit down and when you analyze this from a sports fan's perspective, Curt Miller shouldn't be making those comments about people. And here we are working with our girls, and now certainly the father of a daughter. I wouldn't want him saying that about my daughter. I wouldn't want him saying that, period. If he wants to say, hey, my daughter's out there playing rough and trying to establish position and she's elbowing and fighting, that's fine. But to sit back and say that she weighs 300 pounds and to make a disparaging remark like that, I kind of think he kind of got what he was supposed to get. But I do like how Miss Cambridge handled it. She handled it with class and just kind of shot off to him. Hey, dude, I'm not 300 pounds. I'm 235, and I'm 6'8", and I look good. I think that's kind of the gist of what she said. But she said she's not going to let anyone kind of make those comments against her, and good for her for standing up for herself. And I'm glad to see that the ladies in these sports who are really providing so much excitement and so much energy and so much passion with the way that they play these games. And I just have really been I've become a big fan over the years of the WNBA. They play with real passion. They play to win. This isn't about contracts, and this isn't about overpriced multi-million-dollar athletes. The women in the WNBA, the women last night who I'm going to reference in the UW softball game, they come and they play sports to win, and it's so refreshing to see their attitude. So Liz Cambridge, good for you for standing up for yourself and putting Curt Miller in his place. And Curt Miller, if you want to talk about trying to fight for position, and if you want to try to say that she might be a little rough in there, that's great. But when you start taking personal shots and calling somebody a 300-pounder, that's a little low blow, my brother. Let's watch what we talk about. You're listening to Juan Cotto on the Dupe and Edwin show was hoping to hear some comments from Edwin. I'd love to hear what Edwin would have said about that. And it's on RainierAvenueRadio.world. And it is our last segment that I'm going to head into, the last topic I'm going to cover. Speaking of female sports, last night, the University of Washington Husky softball team. The University of Washington Husky softball team, you may have heard about their situation, ranked 16th, the 16th seed in the softball tournament. They felt like they were dramatically underseeded. They were the number 2 team in the always strong Pac-12 conference, and they felt that they were really low ball seeded, and they were put in a very, very difficult group where they had to face the Big Ten champion Michigan Wolverines. And on Saturday, the Michigan Wolverines came in and beat the Huskies in the second game, the winner's game. And the University of Washington had to come back on Sunday after winning a game Saturday night, and they had to beat the University of Michigan twice. They came out behind Gabby Plain and shortstop Sis Bates and won the first game 2-0. Then, before you knew it, I mean, even before we turned the TV back on, I was looking at the Phil Mickelson highlights. I turned the TV back on, and the Huskies are down 5-1. And then in the second game, they bunched some hits together. They were just completely undaunted. And the University of Washington caught Michigan and then passed them. And then lo and behold, they won the game 10-5 to go into the super regional round. So my hat's off to that incredible group of women over there on Montlake for their toughness and their tenacity, getting past the University of Michigan. And the University of Washington Husky softball team has been so consistent over the years. They're obviously a very, very hard-working bunch. They are extremely well coached, and they are able to hang in tough situations. They believe in themselves, and they came back last night. It was so great to see Michigan, obviously a very, very fine program, and a program that has been a traditional power in women's softball and certainly out of the Midwest for a number of years. But the Huskies remained composed. They kept themselves together, and they obviously have tremendous belief in their program and what they do, and they just hung in there, and they were able to get past the Michigan Wolverines last night in spectacular action. I stayed up watching the ball game, and I was just wondering, hey, is this Husky team going to fold? Especially after they fell behind 5-1 in the second game, and they put out so much emotion in the first game. But Gabby Plain, I just tell you, she is a superstar. With going up with the other great pitchers in Husky history, and she just did a tremendous job of keeping them in the ball game. And then obviously Sis Bates, the shortstop, who's a defensive whiz. And they were saying in the broadcast on ESPN that they do not have Defensive Player of the Year, but if they did, she certainly will be. So I was just really, really excited for the Husky women's softball program. I'm excited for their competitive nature and the ability that they have to stay in there and hang in. So that is my update on sports this week with the Edwin and Rick show. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope that these are topics that you will be talking about this week. And I thank you so much for checking in, and it's always a pleasure to sit in for my guys, Rick DuPree and Edwin Bailey.
There's too many of you to cry. Brother, there's far too many of you die. You know we've got to find.
This is Paul Pearson, host